for the last 2 years, and to remember the COVID victims, to remember all the turmoil in the country and, you know, the effects that it's had on our children through all of this, and just maybe quietly for a minute count our blessings. And, you know, meeting like this was one thing we just took for granted, and we didn't know that that would be taken away from us. So let's just pause for a minute and reflect on all of that. Thank you, and thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to do the flag salute, so if you'll join us, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please, Yana.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Losi?
Here.
Councilmember Stanfield?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent?
Here.
Mayor Long?
Here. All right, we have some presentations, some proclamations, and some introductions. So our first one is Introduction of Vehicle and Equipment Mechanic Chad Watson, who is, here he comes.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. It's great to be back in person here, not in quite a Zoom setting. So I'd just like to introduce tonight one of our city fleet mechanics, Chad Watson. He was born and raised in Fortuna, attended Fortuna High. He's been in the mechanic field approximately about 8 years, and active in the local adult sports leagues of basketball and softball. An example of his duties include in completing the 90-day bit inspections, which is DOT regulations. He's been working on services and repairs on equipment lately, and he's just been fitting in right in with the group for sure. Got some fabricating to do, so we're going to test his brainstorming ideas and fix some equipment on that. So I just want to introduce you to Chad Watson.
Hi everyone, I'm Chad Watson. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to work for the city, and I love this town, and I want to do the best I can for everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I don't know if I should congratulate him or not, because he left my company to go to the city. Just saying, just saying. But welcome, Chad, and I totally understand your decision, and he's a great kid, so you guys will enjoy having him around.
Yes, absolutely.
Our next one is Introduction of Street Maintenance Worker.
Yes, our second one tonight, we had a pretty good turnaround in December and January. We got quite a few faces. He's Riley Collins is our newest member, street maintenance 2 worker. He was originally started as our part-timer, and so he was able to just slide right into this position, and it's been working out well. So Riley was born and raised also in Fortuna, attended Fortuna High. His background is in carpentry, tile, and masonry from working with local builder. He had some equipment operation with forklifts and stuff down in a local mill. And so when he started this part-time position, he saw a lot of weed eating time with the grass growing this year, and so he's kind of moving on to doing more carpentry stuff, concrete work, and just all the traffic control duties of a street maintenance worker now. So I just want to introduce you to Riley.
Hey, I'm Riley Collins, and I appreciate this opportunity that you all have given me to work and help with the city. Been here my whole life, so it's going to be an honor. Thank you.
Welcome, Riley. I love the fact that we're keeping our young people here in town. And our next one is Introduction of Administrative Assistant.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Again, I know Bob said it, but it is really good to be back seeing everybody in person, although a little strange, I suppose, for a little bit. But I have the honor here of presenting our third new employee of the evening, which is Morgan Harwood. Morgan is also a Fortuna local, and she is a graduate of Fortuna High, the class of 2015. After graduating, she went on to complete her MBA at Humboldt State University, and she comes to us here at the city as our newest senior public works administrative assistant. It's a very important job that ties together a lot of the function of the city public works department, which is one of our largest. And I know I speak on behalf of all of our staff when I say we're really excited to have her skills and her positive attitude on our city team. So without further ado, I will introduce Morgan.
Hello, I'm Morgan. I just wanted to say thank you for having me here tonight. I am very grateful for the opportunity and excited to work for the city of Fortuna, and it was great to meet you all. So thank you.
Welcome.
And I've known that young lady since the day she was born, and the city certainly scored. And we have another one, introduction of our newest police officer.
Good evening, Mayor and Honorable City Council. I have to echo the sentiment. This is what I've been waiting for almost 2 years now. I was never a fanatic of Zoom, so to everybody in the community, good evening. This is absolutely outstanding. So the young man I have here beside me is John Geyer. He is our newest police officer. He was sworn in by our Honorable Mayor on February 28th, and he has impressed me in a short amount of time. So a little known fact is that John was actually a native of Humboldt County. He was born in Eureka, California, and his family moved to Trinity County when you were about 6 years old. So John, he got pretty serious early on. He attended Trinity County High School, and while most other students were pursuing athletics and other extracurriculars, John got his foot in the door with the Weaverville Fire Department and became an explorer. And at the very young age of 18 years, do I have that right? 18 years. He was actually certified as a firefighter. So he hit the ground running there. He comes to us with some experience. He's hit the ground running for the Fortuna Police Department as well, though I think the first time we saw him smile was last week. So another interesting fact, John is not the first member of his family to serve the great city of Fortuna. His grandfather, John Walter Geyer, was actually graduated from Fortuna High School and served for the Fortuna Fire Department. He was a captain, and he also built many homes throughout the community here. I had a brief conversation with the current fire chief, Russ Brown, who recollected John's grandpa and had some very, very fond memories. So I talked a little bit about the experience that John brings with him. He was formerly employed by both the Lassen County and the Trinity County Sheriff as a correctional officer. We did some digging, and we actually found out, and he's kind of a quiet young man just starting out, but we found out that he is decorated for some life-saving. There was an inmate a couple of occasions in the Trinity County Jail, and right out of high school, he helped an injured friend escape a brush fire that broke bad in Trinity County. So he definitely has some experience. His hobbies, gunsmithing, camping, hiking, fishing, and reading. And he is now in the 4th week of the field training program. All reports are that John is doing exceptionally well. We had reports from the academy early on that he follows instructions very well. He's a self-starter and he stays on task. So we are fortunate to have John. I'd like to turn the podium over to him for a few comments. But again, as I said, we're fortunate to have him. Go ahead, John.
Hello, I'm John Geyer. Nice to be here. I thank you for this amazing opportunity. I promise I do smile, actually quite a lot, sometimes for no reason, but I hope to serve this community admirably and well for many years. Thank you.
Welcome, Officer Geyer. We are pleased to have you, and I just heard that commitment for several years. So. And for some of you who may not have seen our police chief in person, I didn't introduce him when he went to the podium, but this is Chief Casey Day, and he's been with us since July of 2020. So we were shut down already when he came on board, so he's never actually sat in a council meeting with us. And the same goes for Mike Losey. He was elected in November of 2020, and this is his first in-person meeting since coming back to the council. So it's just really weird. So we have a really special award now, and Chief Day is going to take the first part of this.
Thank you, Mayor Long and Honorable City Council. Just on comments earlier, as we earmark our return to the first in-person council meeting since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, I feel it is fitting that we have such an occasion to recognize an exceptional young hero that's living right here in the city limits of Fortuna. At this time, I'd like to ask Joseph just to kind of stand up and be recognized while I kind of go through this. You can stand at the podium and I'll be right down, I promise. So in January of 2022, staff members brought it to my attention that an article had been published in the Alder Grove Charter Schools school newspaper that kind of talked about something that had happened to Joseph and his family while they were on vacation in the Washington, D.C. area. So this happened August of 2021. The article emphasized Joseph Bishop's involvement in saving two young children. They were brothers, twins, from drowning while near a hotel swimming pool. So upon learning about the incident, I asked some of my staff members to begin collecting information on the facts surrounding the incident, and I also visited with the Bishop family at their home. I spoke with Joseph and Joseph's parents who are here tonight, Michael and Pam Bishop, and just to kind of find out from the horse's mouth what had actually occurred. Let me adjust this. So now the way I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Joseph, as a family was staying at the Homewood Suites, a hotel in Columbia, Maryland, during the summer of August of 2021, while in the swimming pool area, Joseph saw another family entering the pool area. Both parents were holding newborn children with quite a few other children in tow. I think the parents were responsible for 6 children at that time. And overcome by what was probably excitement, 2 small twin boys who did not know how to swim jumped into the deep end of the swimming pool. So Joseph Bishop recognized in the moment and almost instantly that these 2 boys were struggling for their lives as the mother screamed out for help. And without concern for his own safety, he jumped into the pool and brought both of the boys to the surface, where they were assisted by others to the pool deck and the patio. After some coughing and some tears, the boys were reunited with their mother. So personally, for me, this story, Joseph's actions, it captivated me as a human being and spoke to me in a number of ways. I could not be prouder of Joseph for his attention to detail in the moment and immediate response in the moment. In this day and age that we live in, we're easily distracted by, things that are going on in our own lives and our mobile devices and, meetings that are planned for Monday. So the fact that he was attentive to what was going on and present in the moment, I think speaks significantly about this young man's character. So I would like to publicly and passionately recognize Joseph for his decisive action, which saved 2 boys from drowning in a swimming pool. The demonstration of selflessness, which was in no doubt an act of heroism, certainly made a difference, and I hereby commend him for his actions. At this time, I would like to give the floor back to Mayor Long, who has a proclamation, I believe, to read on behalf of the City Council.
Thank you, Chief. This is a City of Fortuna proclamation in recognition of Joseph Bishop. Whereas Joseph Bishop, a 16-year-old resident of the City of Fortuna, was on a family vacation in Washington, D.C. to visit U.S. historical sites in August of 2021. Whereas during that vacation, the Bishop family was relaxing next to a swimming pool in a suburb of Baltimore, Maryland, when they suddenly were startled by a nearby woman's screams. Whereas upon listening to the woman scream that her 2 sons were in the pool and drowning, Joseph Bishop, without any hesitation or concern for his own safety, is reported to have immediately jumped into the water to rescue the 2 brothers. Whereas Joseph Bishop's unhesitating courage and decisive action allowed him to save 2 young boys from drowning by pulling them out and bringing them out of the pool safely. His actions are to be admired and commended. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Fortuna, on behalf of the citizens of Fortuna, recognize Joseph Bishop for his courageous action and present him with this commendation for saving the life of 2 young boys in August of 2021. Signed this 21st day of March in the City of Fortuna. And so this is presented on behalf of the entire City Council.
Thank you so much. It means the world to me. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Long, and thank you, Chief Day. It means the world to me. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Joseph, the council would like to shake your hand and say thank you. Mackenzie, are you proud of your brother? Do you want to tell us how wonderful he is?
It's all right.
All right, well, that was a good opening to our first meeting in person, having all of our new employees in person. And Joseph, we really appreciate you being here, and thanks for your parents for showing up as well. Now we move on to the business stuff, which isn't nearly as exciting, but got to do it. All right.
A lot of people want to leave at this point.
Yeah. If you guys are not joining us for the rest of the meeting, we'll give a minute for it to clear out. Good thing I took my picture already.
Yeah, she was here from the beginning. He's still mine. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the rest of our meeting. Now is oral comments from the public. If anyone here would like to address the council on something that is not on the agenda or something that is on the consent calendar, now would be the time. Seeing no one rushing to the podium, we'll close public comment and move on to our consent calendar.
Somebody just left a purse.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, we have 9 items on our consent calendar, including city council minutes, our monthly reports from administration, community development, finance, parks and rec, police, public works, River Lodge, and report of disbursements. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items?
I would, Madam Mayor.
Which one?
Community development, please.
C, okay, anyone else?
I'd just make a couple of remarks on E and G.
Okay. All right, Mike Losi, you have the floor.
I really, and I don't see Liz here tonight, but I really appreciated this report. It's done in bullet points, very concise paragraphs, and with a summation at the end of the monthly permits issued. 2 pages. and it's amazing. So I want to make sure and thank her for doing such an excellent job and hitting the important, as she says, significant activities here, all in a very concise report, so very well done.
All right, Mike Johnson, Parks and Rec.
I'd just like to commend the park staff on the,
I don't know whose it is.
the gain's too high.
Okay.
But anyway, they can probably hear me through Tandy's. But I just commend the park staff on how the medians and the boulevard look, how the park looks in the mornings, taking a walk through there. I stopped by the museum the other day and talked to Alex, and I mean, it's amazing. With short staffing and things the way they are, they rise and just get it done. And I just wanted to thank them for that. And I'll just jump on down to
Public Works,
G.
okay.
And the item there, the paving on Riverwalk Drive, talking to people and everything, it went pretty well. The business people weren't super affected. They got it done, got the road open. The joints in the asphalt look amazing. The traffic control was good. It was chaotic. It's always chaotic, but it worked. And now the striping and everything, it just makes a world of difference for our community center and all the upcoming events that's coming. So I just wanted to commend everybody on that. The contractor, the staff that worked on it is great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Do we have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to our city council business. Authorize the city manager to submit an urban greening grant, resolution 2022-09.
Thank you, Mayor Long, Honorable Council. It's great to be back here, and what a turnout for introduction of some of our staff. That microphone doesn't like me too much, so we'll go with this other one. So I have just a brief PowerPoint presentation because I wanted to show you some graphics too, but the recommendation is to approve resolution 2022-09 and authorize the city manager to submit an urban greening grant application. So SB 859 made $47.5 million available for urban greening projects at the state level with the intention of decreasing air and water pollution, to have other benefits, including providing recreational opportunities and to expand parks and natural systems. The city, for a long time, the city has considered different options for the 13 acres it owns as part of the Vansel Reservoir property that houses the Vansel Reservoir up on Vansel Street. And for a long time, staff has looked at the 7-acre adjacent parcel and thought it would be great to manage those two properties at the same time and have a bigger forest complex that could be used for recreational opportunities, potentially trails. And so when this opportunity came up, we thought about being able to grow trees, sequester greenhouse gases, and that this would fit in really well with the guidelines of the call for projects. It's also close to Roner Park. It could potentially have a trail connection from the Vansel neighborhood, so people who want to go to the park from the Vansel area could walk down to the park parcel and walk through the acquisition piece. It does have frontage onto High Street, and there could be a connection down to Carson Woods Road in the park. So we're excited about that opportunity. There are some additional right-of-way needs that would have to be met there. But we think that this project hits a lot of key areas that they're looking for in the call for grant applications. And so it's an online submittal. It's not an overly rigorous effort to put this together, some figures and mostly a lot of writing and descriptions, so it's not a huge effort. Real quickly, here's an area map. You can see at the top the 13-acre Vansel Reservoir parcel, the parcel that we're considering submitting for grant, for an acquisition with this grant. Is the next one down. It's indicated on the map, and then the bottom 3 parcels to the right, those are the Roner Park parcels, so you can see the different fields, the rodeo grounds. One of the really nice things about this parcel is it really provides a wonderful backdrop for the rodeo grounds, and if you've ever which I know the council has. If you've ever gone to a ball game at Roner Park or you sat in the rodeo grounds, it's just a really incredible backdrop for a park being in the middle of town. And so one of the motivations from staff's perspective is to be able to maintain that vista. I mean, it's a very scenic vista, and there's plans to create some home sites and do some more clear cuts, and I'm not in a bad way, but small areas select exemptions to develop home sites. And I think if there's potential to pay a fair market price for this and preserve it as a backdrop for the rodeo and have a growing forest there, that's a good vision for the city. So it would preserve a green belt, an important green belt within the city. It would maintain the scenic views. It would have potential for recreation. In the past, we talked about a disc golf course. Again, if we could have a trail that could connect the neighborhoods and get people to the park without getting in a car. And then, again, growing trees, sequestering carbon. Even though it's a small parcel, it's consistent with the guidelines and putting things in the right direction. So with regard to the fiscal impact, no matching funds are required. One of the things I would like to do is pursue getting an appraisal sooner. So that is reimbursable by the grant, but if for some reason the grant's not successful, then we would have to pay for the appraisal, which we expect to cost about $5,000. We have a contribution of staff time to submit the grant and develop and administer it. And then Measure E committee has set aside a project for parks acquisition and improvement, and so the appraisal cost would come from Measure E if we're not successful with the grant and they're not reimbursed. So potential for no match, but at most $5,000 with the effort that we have now. And so the recommended action is to adopt resolution 2022-09, authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application. And those are due on the 28th. We have a lot of pieces put together, so this is the last piece that we have as a resolution from the city council authorizing submission of the application.
All right, thank you, Merritt. Does anyone from the council have questions at this time?
I just have one regarding what do we do to maintain our 13-acre parcel now? And would that extra 7 acres be another maintenance expense moving forward?
What's interesting, Councilmember Johnson might have some background in this too. We've done very little to maintain that parcel. It's required very little maintenance and staff time. I don't think the parks director had gone up there until we had considered different recreational opportunities. So it requires very little maintenance. If we did open it up to the public and had some kind of recreational facility up there, certainly wherever you have people going, but without people going there, it doesn't take much maintenance. So, even if we just had the acquisition and no use, it'd be little maintenance. If there was a trail, then you have people and you have people doing things, in an area, not unlike the rest of the park that has forest trails that go through there. So, I think we'd have to put some work into fencing to protect neighboring properties and really just keep an eye on it more than anything else. But it's a growing redwood forest that was cut a couple of years ago that, it doesn't require a lot of maintenance.
Mike Wilson?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Back when it was just after it was cut, and then more recently, I talked to some of the homeowners around there, not only up on the top, but down below near Schuler Lane. And I think that they have some concerns whether it's going to be developed or whether the park goes in there. One of the things is, I suppose there's 3 options here with this piece of property. Either it could be developed by the current owner or sold to be developed. It could be park property or part of our park, or it could remain as is without any development and in private hands without being park property. And I'm getting a sense from the people that are affected most by those, within that area, that their desire would be to leave it as is. So I guess the question is, and I'm sorry Liz isn't here, but I guess the question is that property developable to put housing on that in the future?
Currently it's designated for low-density residential, so yes. And I know the current owner has expressed their interest to do some exemptions, to do clear cuts across the timber parcel that could be developed for house sites. So that's his intention moving forward. And, you know, I think if the city were to own it, at a minimum, it would be a green belt that would sit there and grow trees, much like the Vansel Forest, with maybe an occasional timber harvest. Or at the most, you could have a disc golf course, or you could have trails, and it really just depends. You know, so it could be just sit there like it is for another 30 years if the city bought it, or it could be turned into a recreational asset. And that's really up to the council moving forward. But I think, you know, just the compelling things to me are the backdrop for the rodeo. You know, if that was developed into into a few home sites, that would change. And again, low maintenance, and it's consistent with the grant guidelines. So, you know, I don't think it's going to be a maintenance liability for the city.
So I'm not sure that people believe that it could be developed into home sites up there. Access is one issue, and I know that when it was logged, access was off of High Street in a very narrow driveway. I don't know if you went up and looked at that, but it's amazing that they got log trucks and bulldozers through that access, that driveway. Now, is that, if that were sold, they would have to have some kind of a right-of-way from Schuler Lane or Carson Woods Road coming up from the bottom, or that would be the only access from High Street, right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't analyzed it for development potential, other than I know that's the intention of the property owner. So if you want to ask me about driveway widths and right-of-way widths, I don't have those answers for you today. That's their intention of the owners. That's all I can tell you. I know it's not the city's intention to develop it for that. So I don't really have a lot. I can't go into what it would take for them to develop it and how many home sites. I haven't looked at it for that at all.
Okay. Like I say, I wish Liz were here. She might be able to give a little
She really
bit
hasn't been involved with this project, and what she tell you is probably low density residential, but it's probably limited by the topography. A lot of it's steep, but certainly there's some flatter portions that could be developed. So, and you know, they cut a road that bisects a parcel, so that road could be converted to a trail or potentially a driveway. And you know, if you're going to evaluate the development, you'd have to look at the width of the driveway, the length, and how many lots. And there's a lot of what ifs if you're talking about development potential, and I just don't know the answer.
Does anyone else have questions for Merritt?
Just one comment that in the staff report under fiscal impact, it talks about the appraisal and the grant successful and everything goes through, it could be reimbursed by the grant itself.
That's right.
Otherwise, it's paid out of Measure E funds.
Yes.
As park acquisition.
Yeah.
I just have another comment. I got a phone call today from a resident that lives up on Vansel, and she was actually very excited about the possibility of the city buying this and keeping it the way it is. And she said that they actually walk, there's a trail from Vansel down to the park, and they walk that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that. And we haven't really put it out there for the public, you know, other than in the council meeting agenda. It seems like kind of a no-brainer if you have the option to keep it like it is or do something in the future. You could really seek that public input if you're going to do something in the future, so.
That's what she was calling for, to see if she needed to come down here and make a comment. I said, probably not yet.
Yeah, so staff would like to proceed with the grant application, and then, you know, if we are successful, we'd bring it back to the council to determine how best to use that parcel in the future. And again, it could sit there, or it could be a huge recreational asset.
Well, I think like I say, the desire, at least the sense I got from property owners, is that if it could be developed, then they would prefer to have the park property there as opposed to have a development there. The issue as far as an easement through down to Schuler Lane is still going to have to be decided as to how to.
Yeah, there's no guarantees on that right now.
Right.
As far as maintenance that's been done up there, I think in 25 years, the only thing I remember doing up there is when the Vansel project was going on and the initial liner leaked, doing some maintenance up there when the liner was running water down to the bottom. And went up there a couple of times, and I think that's the only time I ever went up there.
Yeah, we do have a project. We're going to cut some trees back we're going to pursue an exemption to cut some trees back from the Vansel Reservoir. They drop needles on the roof and they clog the gutters and they've caused some erosion. And so we still have an ongoing project in the capital improvement program that we haven't finished yet to do that. And so we have some foresters working on an exemption for that to cut the trees back from the fence.
We'll open public comment if anyone from the public wants to comment on this item.
Don Ingram, I'm a resident on Vista, which is adjoining to this particular property. I walk it every day with my dog and my cat. It's got some great trails, and it has been logged, but I understand the owners also put in for a residential 3-acre change to rezone it, but it's very limited for any building there, and access, as Mike said, is very difficult because it's considered an all-weather road, but it's very steep. And, but it is good hiking, and it's full of a lot of wildlife too, so I kind of look forward to that. I'd like to have that backyard.
Thank you, Don. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Bring it back to the council.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-09, read by title only.
I'll second it.
All right, Sienna, we have a motion and a second.
Resolution 2022-09, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fortuna approving the application for grant funds from the California Urban Greening Grant Program. Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Losi?
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent?
Yes.
Mayor Long?
Yes, thank you. All right, our next item of business is approved proposed staff position changes and pay classification changes. Merritt?
Thank you, Mayor Long. Council, again, I'll be presenting this one. I do have a PowerPoint because I wanted to have a couple exhibits to show you pay scales and org chart, things like that. So I put that together. It's not just a Zoom thing. We're trying to have the information there. Sometimes it's easier for people to digest. So the recommendation, as stated by the mayor, is to approve the recommended pay classifications and changes to the organizational chart. There's 3 changes contemplated. 2 of them that are proposed to the org chart. One is a reclassification, but the first is to eliminate the Deputy Director of Public Works position and add a Public Works Director position. And then the second is to eliminate the lead worker position and add a shift supervisor position. And then the last one is a reclassification of the recreation program supervisor pay scale. And I'll get into the reasons for each of these. I have one slide for each of those. But first, let me show you the org chart. This is pretty busy. I just wanted to show the comprehensive org chart. And when it comes down to the Public Works Department, let's see. My pointer's not going to work, but if you look in the center, you can see the manager, city manager. Right now, the city manager acts as Public Works Director, and you can see that first red box to the right below city manager. Public Works is the largest department in the city. I can't remember the total number of employees. Each one of those boxes is not an employee. Some of those boxes are 3 employees, some of them are 2. So Public Works is by far the biggest department in the city, and really it warrants a full-time director. You'll see that, following the Public Works line down, you can see a cross-out X. That would be the Deputy Director position, and the solid box at the top would be the Public Works Director position. And then the other proposed change to the bottom right is the elimination. The council recently froze the utilities superintendent position. Again, we recruited unsuccessfully for that position. And so our lead worker has been acting as a supervisor with the only really line of command, going through the Public Works Director, which is currently the city manager. It's just not adequate supervision for a 5-person crew. So we want to change that position to a supervisor, not just because the number of the people they supervise is 5, but that position also has the certificates and capabilities of a higher level consistent with our wastewater shift supervisor, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then again, I'd like to point out the red box to the upper left, that's our recreation program supervisor. They oversee at any given time up to, especially during the summer months, up to 16 recreation coordinators and 4 recreation leaders, so they could have up to 20 part-time people. So I might have said some of this, but again, elimination of the deputy director and adding a director. Previously, we had a deputy director of Public Works. He resigned. Really, staff feels that it's needed, and council previously approved recruiting for a Public Works Director position. This approval tonight would just formalize that decision. more oversight's needed to handle the personnel decisions and plan for the long-term sustainability of the city's infrastructure and for the implementation of projects. With regard to the elimination of the utility lead and changing that to a shift supervisor, again, that's the, right now that position is supervising the utility crew, which consists of 5 utility workers. The utility lead has the same level of classifications as the water and wastewater shift supervisor, which also oversees the same number of people. They still have level 3 certificates. So in the case of the shift supervisor for utilities, they have a distribution 3, whereas the water and wastewater, they have treatment and water and wastewater treatment level 3 certs. And then our shift supervisor also has to have a backflow cert to be able to operate the backflow devices within the city. But with no superintendent, the day-to-day operation falls on the lead worker. And so although we eliminated the utility superintendent last year, that was a cost-saving measure. We were trying to be cautious during times of COVID when the budget was uncertain. Really, this is a more efficient way than having a utility superintendent and a lead worker. We have one shift supervisor. So I think this works going forward, and especially with the public works director provide that oversight to a utility shift supervisor. We think this will meet the city's needs and be a little more cost effective. So the last one is the reclassification of the recreation program supervisor. A little bit of background, the recreation supervisor is responsible for hiring and oversight of up to 20 part-time recreation coordinators and recreation leaders. They're responsible for the development of new recreation programs. This has been one of the prerogatives that the Measure E committee has wanted to see and the city's wanted to see, development of new programs. They're responsible for summer camp and break camps and developing new content for those camps, not having the same content from year to year. Responsible for developing and implementing sports camps. Currently, the recreation program supervisor is at the lowest pay scale in the city, below the facility custodian and entry-level maintenance workers. And the reason why I brought this tonight instead of waiting to bring it back with a budget is really when there's a mismatch of pay scale and responsibility level, this really needed to be corrected in my opinion. So that's why I brought this. We do have some other changes we'd like to make to make some of our positions more regionally competitive, but this one really you have an inconsistency when you have somebody who oversees the equivalent of approximately 4 full-time employees and really trying to hire and fire up to 20 rec leaders and rec coordinators. They need to be up at a level that's at least above the facility custodian. I know in the past the city's really tried to be cost conscious and parks are funded through general funds. So this is one that there's a request from the Parks Department to fund this with Measure E. So this position is right now under consideration to be funded by Measure E. I had a couple of questions from council members about what is this, what are some of the new programs we've gotten and what are we getting from this position. So here's some of the items that were presented to the Measure E committee by our parks director. Drop-in volleyball, it was a new program. Drop-in basketball was a new program. 2 additional roller skating sessions. I hear they're being very well attended. They started a play group with some of the funding from First 5 that the council, I think, is aware of from that action to receive that grant. And then she's been enhancing the summer break experiences for youth. So she has a background in biology and education and organized sports. So they've been able to have more structured activities, field trips, visitors, outdoor experiences. And our parks director's here. He's more familiar with some of the things she's done, and he put this slide together. Additionally, some of the new events that they were able to bring on this line, with having somebody in this position. Again, it was vacant before the current person filled it, but they added some new events, including the Roner Park Spookathon, Pastels in the Park, Paint and Sip Nights. You can see the picture where they had wine tasting and painting with local artists, skating theme nights, Indigenous People Days walk in the lower left, and then the bike rodeo. So, it takes a long time to come up with these and create the content for these types of programs. And again, it's a more responsibility than is reflected in our pay scale. And here's just a clip of our pay scale. This is the bottom of the pay scale. You can see at the top red cross-outs, a recreation program supervisor. In the staff report, it recommends moving that position from F15 to F20. You can see where it's highlighted in red, or F23. Really, that position's oversees the same number of full-time equivalents as our Recreation Transit Administrative Supervisor, but again, we did see, you know, a negotiated MOU with the Employees Association that gave will give a 10% raise over 2 years. So at this time, you know, I think F20 classification would be sufficient, but certainly not the lowest rung below the facility custodian.
And this was the supervisor position that we authorized earlier in the year?
I think it was Aaron's
Yes,
here.
it is.
Yeah, yes.
It went, that was full-time, went to part-time during COVID, and then we brought it back.
Brought it back. Okay, thank you.
So, again, I know the council's desire was to see this to come with the city budget. We tried to keep the changes to a minimum at this time, but I felt like this was an important one with the difference in responsibility and the difference in pay, so. The recommended action is to approve the pay classification changes and the organizational chart changes.
So does anyone have any questions?
Just to make sure with Aaron that we've got the money to pay for these changes.
Well, we don't know because
In
we don't have a
Well,
budget,
between right now
But it's
and
Measure
the end
E.
of the fiscal year.
but it's Measure E as well.
So there, in the staff report, and I didn't put a clip from that, there's a fiscal analysis. So we expect this, you know, this change for the let's see, let me open up my.
It was
summary real quick.
$4,500 to reclassify recreation supervisor.
Yeah, I should have put a slide in there for the fiscal impact. I guess I missed that one on this, but let me just turn to it real quick and I can go over it with you.
And that whole salary already comes from Measure E.
That's right. So the fiscal impact, the net impact of all of these changes would be 11,200 to the general fund. Of that, 4,500 would be from, you know, for the recreation position, and the other ones would be for primarily from the change from Deputy Director of Public Works to Public Works Director. And then the impact to the enterprise funds would be approximately 28,000 again. The biggest change, 20,000, would be from the addition of the Public Works Director, and 8,800 for the shift superintendent, changing that from a lead worker.
Does anyone have any other questions, or does anyone want Cameron to come up to the podium?
I have a couple of questions. We talked about starting this at the new fiscal year, and so we're not taking more out of this year's budget, and we know how much we have out of next year's budget. So if we're going to start that at that year, then why can't we wait till we see how much we have in our budget to do this?
Well, my hope would be to change this April 1st when the new salary scale from the MOU comes into place, so not at the start of the fiscal year. Otherwise, it really wouldn't make a difference whether we did it now or then. So I suppose it's up to the council if you wanted to start it sooner or later or wait till the end of the fiscal year. That's up to council, but our recommendation would be to make this effective with the updated salary schedule on April 1st.
Makes sense.
So one of the things I didn't think about earlier today when I was contemplating all of this is that if we wait till July 1st, she's already June into the whole organizing summer fun and all of the things. So supervising the 16 to 20 people and all of that at the low rate versus this new rate if we decide to do it.
Yeah, a lot of the work comes up front, and again, Cameron could probably elaborate in this, but, you know, this was a recommendation that, you know, Cameron and I discussed originally. I was gonna wait, I know the council wants to have the budget in its entirety, but this one, if there wasn't the disparity between responsibility levels and salary, I wouldn't have brought it now. But I think regardless of our budget situation, you know, to have someone who's developing that level of programs, less than a facility custodian who doesn't supervise anybody, and not to you know, demean our facility custodian, she does an incredible job and things have been wonderful since we brought her on. So that's a very important position, and you definitely notice when that isn't done well. So we have a wonderful facility custodian, but the responsibility level of supervising, hiring 20 people, even if they're part-time positions and not full-time as equivalent, it's just not right, and it's something I'm strongly going to recommend, and I thought should be advanced. But, you know, at the will of the council, you can, you know, choose the date for implementation of that. If you don't want it to be April 1st, then it could be the beginning of the fiscal year. But
So has Measure E committee looked at this yet?
No, Measure E committee, it was brought to them and described as a project, but they haven't made a decision on what they want to fund. So the next meeting will, I think it's April 6th, April 5th, we'll be presenting a recommendation from staff of what should be funded. And this is one of the things that we're considering. We really haven't, I think this project should be, I think this position should be funded. And I think, with Measure E, there's programs for youth and senior and public safety and streets and storm drainage were the primary drivers. And I think this is a high priority, and we're seeing some results with the new programs and improvements to our programs and camps. So I think this is a very important one.
Well, the whole salary of the recreation supervisor comes from Measure E, but if we want to have this be effective April 1st and Measure E isn't meeting till April 5th, that seems kind of out of sync.
Well, and I think if you ask our finance director that we have a surplus in Measure E that we could use, so this won't, we had more in Measure E than we expected last year, and we didn't allocate that surplus amount to projects, so we have more than enough to cover the difference, which if it's $4,500 for a year, we're gonna have more than enough to be able to cover the salary for that last quarter.
Cameron, do you have anything to add?
Yes, good
3
evening,
minutes.
council. Oh, that's fine. I'll try. I know I can be long-winded. Just a little bit of history. When I first started this position 4 years ago, I realized that I noticed coming from other recreation and park backgrounds that recreation wasn't a huge priority for the city. And I feel like now is a good opportunity to really develop some of those recreation programs so that we can offer way more opportunities than we have in the past. So, to me, this is a highly valued position. This is the only full-time position in recreation. This person's responsible for a very tiny budget, has to be very creative, has to train in brand new staff, very young staff, has to make sure that they're doing their job correctly and safely, developing new programs, overseeing those programs, developing new curriculums, taking what we've done in the past and improving things. So really it comes down to, how much value does the city council see in a recreation supervisor? Lots of other cities have multiple full-time recreation positions, and this is our only one. So I think this is the first step in really starting to develop some of those programs and grow our recreation division, which has a lot of room for growth. And obviously this will help us recruit and retain strong individuals who will help us administer these recreation programs to our citizens. So I highly value this position, and it's going in the direction that I foresaw. I really appreciate you all bringing it back from part-time to full-time. I don't know what we would be able to do if that position was a part-time position. So I think that with the highly responsible work that this position really requires, that Merritt's right. It just seems way out of whack when you compare it to especially other local cities who are paying their recreation supervisors $14,000 or $15,000 more per year to start.
All right, anyone having questions while Cameron's at the podium? All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone from the public have any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Madam Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
I wanted to
I
ask
think
another
Tammy has-
question. We had a number of positions, or a couple of positions that we wanted to bring back. I just have a quick question on, you want to bring this one above because you think it has more responsibility than the facility custodian, but yet the Recreation Transit Administrative Supervisor was another one that we're going to bring forward, and that position has a whole lot more responsibility than the account clerk, the person that works at the front desk. So is that one going to be still brought forward, or why is one more important than the other?
Because I think relative to the entire Parks Department and the pay scale, that this one is certainly out of character. So when you have somebody who supervises people and is required for hiring, firing, overseeing the quality, overseeing safety with children, it's much different. I think this position and the transit office supervisor, they both supervise 3 people. They're very consistent within the park scale. I think the difference is if you look at an account clerk or a community service officer or public works admin assistant, they're different departments, and I don't think the work maps over as easily as if you're looking at, you know, the Parks Department scale and the level of responsibility through the Parks Department. So to compare a finance account clerk to a recreation supervisor, you really have to look at all the activities and the responsibilities of each one of those. And, you know, part of it comes down to the market too. You know, what positions, you know, how much do you have to pay to have somebody in what position? So, I don't know. Our city clerks are also our human resources officer, but it's more difficult to compare positions between departments and positions in finance versus positions in parks. But, you know, the recreation transit supervisor, the custodian, the parks lead, the parks workers, those are all in the same department, and it's pretty clear to see within that same department what those responsibility levels are. And, you know, parks funding is different too. Parks is general fund, whereas some of the accounting department, they come, you know, they're funded from enterprise funds as well. And so there's different limitations on each department depending on what the budget is. So I don't have a, you know, I don't have an analysis between an account clerk and the recreation supervisor. I think,
We're comparing apples to apples rather than apples to oranges.
right.
So Merritt, you have on the new sheet, you have F20, but in your staff report, you referred to F23. What are you thinking?
Well, I left it open. I think F20 would be the lowest we would go, and the option would be F23. And I think it's reasonable to go to F20. I think, you know, in the long term, you know, without doing a formal class in comp survey, I don't think we need to go to above F20, but, you know, if you look at F23 and you look at the recreation transit administrative supervisor, each of those employees supervise 3 to 3.5 people. Each of them organizes similar types of events. Each of them has to have similar administrative skills. So, you know, they're consistent. The responsibility levels are very similar. But again, there's been a big jump, and this would be going 2 steps. So I think either one would be reasonable at this time. And so I put the lower of the two in there, knowing the council was concerned about overall budget. And at least that brings it up, you know, at the same level as our parks maintenance workers, which, you know, arguably this is a more responsible position. But again, it's tough to draw a direct comparison between maintenance and, you know, recreation program supervisor.
So the 4,500 is the F20 step?
That's right.
Anyone else have questions?
Ready?
Sir?
I'll move to approve the proposed pay classification changes and updated organizational chart.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in-
Councilmember,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Losey,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
I'm going to vote no because I think we should be waiting to get the budget.
Mayor Long.
Yes. All right, hold on, I just hit a button and my thing disappeared. You okay?
You could pause and
Second got me.
pull out.
Should have made the motion.
All right, our next item is a discussion regarding the Fortuna Business Improvement District. No one's listening. All right, you want to take this one, start it
Yes,
off?
thank you, Mayor Long, council. And I had several we put this on the agenda as a discussion item because independently, several council members came to me and had questions. I know that some had followed the most recent FBID meeting. And I think that, you know, where we're at right now with FBID, if anybody's been following, is the city recently loaned FBID money to do an audit. FBID has been in the middle of their audit. They recently completed their audit. And at the last meeting, they released their audit to the city, but really what the portion of the audit that was released was really just a financial statement. And in looking at it, I noticed that there were not findings. And most audits, unless everything's done perfectly, there's findings. And we were really interested in the findings to identify what the shortcomings are of the financial procedures that are being undertaken by FBID, because we're in the process of considering a contract renewal. So we really wanted to see those. I asked the FB president if they had anything more, and she said they did, but they didn't want to release it because it was confidential. And so this was concerning to me because we really need to understand what those deficiencies are to make sure that we can put protections in place in the future to prevent those. And so I think the concern that I heard from the council and the desire to have this on a discussion was really to make FBID known that we really want to see those audit findings, and we want to understand and know that the city's funds being spent are being done so in a way that's in the best interest for the public. And, you know, it's a opinion of our city attorney that those are public documents. And so I've had follow-on conversations with the FBID president. I expect them to meet at the latest in April and to vote to release those findings. I think they, you know, had a little bit of a hiccup in considering their legal advice, but I think in the long term they'll do that. And, you know, but we are concerned, and I wanted to be able to have this as a discussion item so the council could, you know, express their desire with regard to those documents.
So I know that the entire council feels strongly about getting the entire audit, not just the financial portion. We would like to have that by the first meeting in April, which is April 4th. So if you want to be the point person to ask them to provide it by that date, they can possibly schedule a special board meeting on their part and talk about it.
Okay, I'd be happy to make the request. And one of the other things that I know the council has talked about, it's been, I think it's about 6 months or so, and when there was some transition for FBID, I know that there was a public meeting and the council decided to, you know, have FBID, you know, continue to move forward in the current fashion. And so I know there's also some desire of the council to have a workshop with FBID, really kind of to discuss. There's been some desire of the council really to check back in with FBID and understand what they're doing and how they're moving forward. So, you know, if the council does want to convene a workshop, we'd be happy to do that too. And he has water.
Yeah, I think that we've given them 6 months to kind of figure out where they're at, what's been happening, and I think that it is time to have another workshop and figure out, get the council up to date on what they have figured out and decided on their end and how that fits with the city. And for anyone watching that doesn't know what Fortuna Business Improvement District is, it's funded by businesses. You pay a portion to the FBID, is what we call it for short, when you pay your business license, and then the city matches that amount. So it's our business funds as well as city funds. And so the transparency that we're asking for is really important to all of us, because we don't want anything slipping through with public funds that isn't appropriate, and we just need to make sure everything is in line with what the functions of FBID are supposed to be. And I think we need to meet again now, since we have a pretty new board. I don't know that there's anybody, maybe one person who's been on there, 2 people, but they still were fairly new before the transition of the director. And so just helping them figure out what the duties of a board member is. I don't know that they truly understand what they signed up for. And so I think having a workshop to get everybody's feedback and to help them through that would be beneficial, and we can get an update and kind of figure out what our next steps are. Does anybody have anything to add?
I agree. I think that they have to understand total transparency is required for all public funds.
And I just think that they're fairly new and they haven't dealt with public agencies before, and so they're just kind of not really understanding the position that they have taken on. So we need to help them understand that, and then if that's too much for them, maybe they need to resign and we appoint other people. But the other thing is they have 2 openings on their board, and we really would like to fill those positions. So if anyone is interested in, you know, coming forward, there's an application online, correct, Sienna? Yes. friendlyfortuna.com.
One of the important things is that as we fund FBID and we're audited for where our funding goes, then part of that's going to FBID, then FBID has to be, we're accountable to an auditor just like they should be accountable to us, so that when we get our audit done, that we can complete everything according to plan.
And they're also accountable to the businesses that are paying that money. So we just need to refocus a bit and get everybody on the same page.
And I know their effort really has been to kind of, since the last executive director left, I know they really want to get back to the point where, you know, they can resolve the audit issue, which was outstanding for quite some time. And I know they really want to get back to the purpose of assisting city businesses. So I know the intentions are all good, and I think having some discussions at a workshop in the future around, you know, which contract provisions will need to ensure those, you know, safeguards, and then really focusing on the purpose of FBID and how they're going to achieve that purpose. I think that discussion will be valuable.
I think that's important to obtain those audit findings first and then talk
Yes.
about the workshop.
Yes. So Jeremy, when do they typically meet? The second Thursday?
Yes, you're gonna make me talk.
Okay, no, you can just say yes. And I believe their meetings are at 2 o'clock, so if we can get that date, maybe we can coordinate our time on a Thursday that coincides with their regular board meeting so that they don't have to show up to an extra meeting.
If they can get the audit released in
Before that,
advance,
yeah,
right?
and then maybe their next board meeting, if we could throw a doodle poll out there or something to see if all of us could just go to the same time as their regular meeting.
Okay. I think I have direction.
Okay.
I just found the value of Zoom. You can mute yourself.
All right, moving on to city manager's report.
Okay, I just wanted to really broadcast a meeting schedule so everybody could see it and sink in. It's great to have the participation we did tonight. So all of our meetings will be going back in person, and they will all be held for the time being in the city council chambers. So the next council meeting is on April 4th at 6 p.m. The next planning commission meeting is on March 22nd at 6 p.m. The next Measure E committee meeting is on April 5th at 5:30. And the next Roner Community Recreation and Park District meeting is April 6th at 2:30. I think maybe we should add FBID to this so we're all aware of when those meeting schedules are for FBID, so we can put that on there going forward as well. So I just had a few items for my report. Let me see, I wanted to find my notes. There's just a few. One of them, it's exciting. I've been talking with Jeff Durham with the Humboldt Lodging Alliance. He said that they do have a significant money to spend in Fortuna, and that he wants to be able to coordinate with the city, the Chamber of Commerce, and FBID, and really think of a way to market the River Lodge and get more visitors coming to the River Lodge, staying in hotels, and really focusing on tourism through booking the River Lodge. So I'm going to be meeting with him and representatives of the Chamber. I'm not sure if anybody from FBID will make it. They were invited. And then city staff, our Parks Director, Cameron Mole, is going to come. So we're going to try to just really bring everybody together and think about how can we make the most use of the River Lodge and get people staying here in Fortuna and attract more visitors and help them identify the recreational opportunities. So I'm excited to meet with him on Wednesday. I wanted to give an update on the bird scooters. They're out and about. We've gotten a number of calls. You know, we had one gentleman who thought somebody lost their scooter and maybe they belonged to the city and could we come pick it up? So we kind of explained the program to that business owner. And then we've had a couple of calls from the high school, and you know what was happening was some students were riding the scooters, which technically you're supposed to be 18 to ride them to high school, but they were leaving them on campus. So we had a concern from the principal that people were leaving the scooters on campus, and then somebody would be coming from the public onto the campus to rent the scooter. But when you move those without renting them, an alarm goes off. So we had a little bit of snafu there, but I got a friendly call from Clint Dewey, the principal, and he let me know that this issue was happening. And Bird, as true to form, they've been very responsive. So every time we've gotten a complaint, they've gotten back to us most of the time within minutes, yeah. And so they would put a geofence around it. It takes them a little while to make an electronic fence and barrier so people who are renting those won't be able to park them and, you know, check out and stop the bill from running if they're on the high school campus. So I think we've solved that one. And, you know, so we're working our way through. Again, we're in a trial period. The MOU with Bird ends at the end of the year. But so far, there's a lot of people that like them. We've had some concerns, but we're kind of just monitoring it so we can provide the council feedback at the end of the year. And then I will say that we have made some positive progress on the Riverwalk Park acquisition, and things are going in a very positive direction with the help of our city attorney. So I hope to report back with some real concrete progress here in the next week or so. So that concludes my report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mayor?
I do, with regard to the meetings, future meetings. Are they're going to be Zoomable?
So one of the things that we've done, and the council has put money towards retrofitting the council chambers for hybrid meetings. You might notice the new cameras here. There are new cameras that are much higher quality. Some of the things that we're waiting for was we're waiting for monitors for the dais. We're waiting for a new projector, a digital projector. Sienna can tell you more, but in short, for the time being, they will be broadcast on Access Humboldt, and they will be in person. And when we get the additional electronics, we're waiting on hardware, then we will be able to have people participate remotely in a hybrid form, but we're not going to be there. And so it's going to be the status quo without a monitor, so, for the moment.
And it's on YouTube also, the meeting stream on Access Humboldt YouTube channel, so.
So when, do we have a timeline for?
No, I just sent a request out to Tech Home Innovations. That's who's going to install all of the hardware. And he's hoping to have all of the hardware in by next month. It's hard to tell right now with the way shipping is going, and it's electronics specifically, so it's put a little bit of a delay. But it will be a fully interactive process. So once we have the hardware in place, we'll have people who can access the meetings from home via Zoom platform, and you all will be able to see those individuals on the monitors directly, and you'll be able to interact with them through this audio system. So there won't be any, it'll be very seamless. It won't kind of be like the experiences we had just on the Zoom meetings. And then you'll also have monitors right on your dais, so you'll be able to see the speakers and the presentations right in front of you.
And that's Ivan Brownell?
It is.
Okay. And is there any discussion, and this is getting off track a little bit, but any discussion as far as the Brown Act exemptions for down the road with regard to council people that might be on Zoom?
Ryan might be able to speak to that, but I haven't seen any notifications that have changed the accessibility by Zoom. However, I don't know if we still have to declare the state of emergency to allow those remote locations.
As long as the council's on one spot, then you can use the hybrid model under the existing default Brown Act. We would need to make those declarations for the continued state of emergency and take advantage of, I think it's AB 461, if one member or multiple members of the council were in other locations. But we would not, if we utilize that exception to the Brown Act, you don't need to open your living room up and post your agenda.
And have ADA compliance, that type of, okay, thank you.
We had that discussion at HCOG the other day, and our findings were that we needed to keep doing the SB 361 on consent like we've done here. And then if we've got 7 board members and one's at home and 6 is in sight, that's still okay. So.
Yeah, the only thing with AB 361 is the council just needs to review it every 30 days. And so if we go a 30-day period of pure in-person meetings without utilizing that exception, we'll have to start over with a new resolution, which is fine, as opposed to what you've been doing, which is to reconfirm the findings made in the initial resolution. So we'll monitor that and report to the council as needed on that.
And I think at this point, we're getting to the end of the 30 days, and right now, we can't exercise the hybrid meeting. So at this point, we'd want to do a new resolution when we get our hybrid capabilities.
Correct. So long as, any member of the council is remote. If you're all here in person, we don't need the exception.
It gives options.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add one thing. So this whole time I've been trying to troubleshoot this audio issue, which I think is a volume concern with the speakers in here. But I am getting feedback from Access Humboldt as this meeting is going on, and they're telling me that the cameras look amazing. Mike, you're a little out of axis, which means we'll have to bring you in a little bit closer to Tammy to catch you fully. And when the microphone's off, like Ryan was just using, he was talking to you without the microphone, they can't pick that up. So what's streaming at home, they can maybe hear a little bit, but it's not as clear as if you use the microphone. So just some feedback from Access Humboldt.
We'll cut Mike and Ryan a break because it's our first meeting back for a while.
I usually talk loud enough they could pick me up on Sue's microphone.
All right, thank you, Merritt. Moving on to future agenda items. Do we have anything new that we haven't already talked about? All right, moving on to city council reports. Mike Johnson.
Well, I talked a little bit about our just HCOG meeting we just had. Part of that discussion was on going back to in-person meetings and using the hybrid model at the Eureka City Council chambers. We also primarily just had a consent calendar with AB 361 findings and some LTF and road, the overall work program and TDA funding on consent, and the discussion on the AB 361 and going back to in-person meetings. And I did also attend a Caltrans meeting that I was invited to by HCOG. Jeremy's contagious. But a couple of the interesting things is Caltrans is getting a $20 billion increase in their budget this year. Never happens. And via that, we can expect to see 400 new jobs in Northern California, the North region, through the Caltrans increase in budget. And that increase in budget is also for capital outlay items like improving bridges, projects, things such as that. There's also an increase to the locals at $2 billion, and 40% of that is for the locals, and by formula, some of that is designated for the small cities and the rural regions. There's also a report that was done on the Last Chance Grade project, and hopefully by fall, we will have two-way traffic on 101 up and over Last Chance Grade for the first time in, what, 3 years? Something like that. And another thing is the Eureka Arcata Corridor Safety Corridor project. Hopefully that will be going out to bid in May, and we'll have a contract and everything in the fall. So hopefully to start work in the spring and get that project done.
For the overpass, correct?
Yeah, well, yeah, that. A lot of it's already been done. The acceleration lanes, the Jacoby Creek area has been completed. The biggest part is the overpass. And along concurrent with that, some of that will be trail work for the Bay Trail south portion. And at this time, that's about it.
All right, thank you. Mike Losey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a LAFCO Local Agency Formation Commission meeting on the 16th of this month. And we gave direction to our executive officer for a new contract, as well as legal services contract. We started a municipal service review for the Riverside Community District, which is in the bottoms over in Ferndale. I didn't even know there was a community services district out there. Mike probably knew, but it's a very small district, less than 100 connections. And by the 16th, staff had been unable to contact any of their directors, so they weren't able to get any information. They couldn't contact any of the part-time employees. I want to say there's one part-time employee. So that MSR was put off until our next meeting in 2 months. I don't know the condition of the services district, but it's going to be interesting. The commissioners set a budget, which was approved to increase 3% for an operating budget of $187,710, which is just blows my mind that they're able to operate on a budget, total budget under $200,000. They do an awful lot. The agency is involved in so much throughout the county. It just is amazing to me that they can operate at that low of a budget. There are several commissioner terms that are expiring. So our executive officer will contact Kathy Hayes at the county and set up the city select committee meeting. And out of that, then the city representatives or commissioners will be chosen. And there was an ad hoc committee of Deborah Lake, our commissioner, the chair, Virginia Bass, and myself for at-large, to choose at-large community members. And we talked that there were no proposals for annexations or extensions at this time, but we are going to be taking up the McKay Ranch subdivision, which is at the county level right now being examined, but at some point in the future, LAFCO will take a real detailed look at that too. I have a RCEA meeting coming up on Thursday, and I'll report on that at our next meeting.
All
That's all I
right,
have.
thanks. Jeremy?
Let's try this.
Okay.
So you can't use the word contagious on our first in-person meeting, Mike. And we actually talked about both of my committees throughout the meeting. So with FBID, we'll hopefully to have that special. There we go. Nothing.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. Tammy?
I had a Humboldt Transit Authority meeting. We did negotiations for the CEO, is that what is?
Director?
Yeah, director, and got him a new contract, so, and that turned out very well. He was pleased with his new contract. And then this Thursday, the Measure Z Advisory Committee will be making their final decisions on what to recommend to the Board of Supervisors for what projects they recommend to be funded. We've had meetings every Thursday this month, so it's been busy, and my Humboldt Transit Authority meetings have been Thursdays, so Thursdays have been pretty much, and I'm glad there's no more Zoom. So my family gets tired of me being on the computer all the time at home. And I think that's my only, oh, and next Friday we'll be going down to Ukiah for our first League of California Cities meetings down there. So I'm looking forward to being able to meet with all the other cities in our district again. And we don't even know if we'll know them since the new election, who's there and who's not.
Right.
So it'll be fun to meet the new people and get together with all of them again. So I'm looking forward to that also.
This Friday?
This Friday, yeah.
Okay.
Taking a motorcycle down there.
I think everybody's going. Isn't the whole council going?
No, I will not be there.
All right.
Issues that came up, so.
Well, 4 out of 5 is pretty good.
Did we make those reservations?
All right. So I participated in interviewing a potential employee for REDEC. There were 2 of us from the executive committee and 1 from the loan committee, and then the director of REDEC. We are looking for a full-time lender to process loans, I guess a loan processor, underwriter. Our person that is doing that right now is part-time. She's getting quite elderly, would like to retire someday, and our money that we put out there has more than doubled, and our loans have like tripled since we have increased staff. So looking forward to having somebody else come on board and seeing what kind of offer she ended up taking. Hopefully we got her. I'm working with Sandy Dale, which is a privilege to always work with the high school. It's like one of my favorite things when we get to interact with the youth, and we're doing some kind of a career interview type day with keynote speakers and all the things. So I'm excited about that. I think that's on April 21st. And I think that's about it. Oh, we're doing a REDEC visioning on, I think it's March 31st, and we're going to be in person for that meeting. I think there are 2 of us that are on the board now that were involved in the one we did a few years ago. There's only 2 of us left that even were there at that time. So we have a fairly new REDEC board, and so it'll be interesting to see what everybody thinks REDEC's vision or REDEC's role in the community is. But they continue to loan money and We've made some really good loans, like we haven't taken hits on any of them, even through the whole COVID thing. So it's just a great organization to be involved in. It's one of my favorites. So with that, I think we are done with our business for tonight. So it's good to see you guys again, and we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, see you next time.